This will be for the Kuta software worksheet, percent of change. So the two formulas we will be using, if the number increases, you want to do the new value divided by the old value and then subtract 1. If the number decreases, you want to do the new value divided by the old value and subtract that from 1. Okay, so it's almost the same formula, and in either case, when you finish, you want to convert the decimal to a percentage. Okay, you just move the decimal over 2 places. For instance, if you wind up with 0.08, you just move the decimal 2 places to the right, and that would be the equivalent of 8%. All right, so they want to find each percent change to the nearest percent, so we're rounding off. State if it is an increase or a decrease. Okay, well, that part is easy. We know if it is an increase or a decrease right in the beginning of the problem. All right, so let's start with number 1. So since we're going from 45 to 92 feet, clearly we can see this is an increase. All right, and before we even get to the formula, okay, I am just going to do this in steps. I'm going to start with the new value divided by the old value, all right, because that is common to both formulas, whether it's an increase or a decrease. So the new value is 92. And the old value is 45. I am going to use my calculator. And what I want you to do when you do this on the calculator, you can round it to 2 decimals. Okay, the reason that is because they said to the nearest percent. So when you round to 2 decimals, it will be the same as rounding to the nearest percent, as you will see. Okay, on the calculator, I am going to do 92 divided by 45, hit equals. Okay, and we said we're going to round to 2 decimal places. So if you look at the 3rd decimal place, if it's 5 or less, you round it. If it's less than 5, you round it down. So this is going to be 2.04, and we're just going to ignore the rest of it. Okay, so I get 2.04, and we said when it is an increase, you want to take the number that you get and subtract 1. Okay, so I'm going to do 2.04 minus 1, and that will equal 1.04. All right, and finally, converting it to percentage, you move the decimal over 2 places, and 1.04 becomes 104%. Okay, so this is increased by 104%. All right, let's look at number 12. Clearly, we can see that is a decrease. Okay, so again, we're taking the new number and dividing it by the old number. The new number is 42, and the old number is 188. And you want to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so we have 42 divided by 188, hit equals, and we're looking at 2 decimal places. So you look at the 3rd decimal. If it's less than 5, you round it down. So this is just 0.22. The rest of it you can ignore. All right, so in this case, since we're dealing with a decrease, we are subtracting this number from 1. So we're going to do 1 minus 0.22, and that will give us 0.78. Okay, converting that to a percentage, you move the decimal over 2 places to the right, and that is just 78%. So the answer is actually decreased by 78%. So just a reminder for the increase, when you use the formula, you're subtracting by 1. Okay, but for the decrease, you're subtracting from 1. But in both cases, you're using the fraction, the new value, divided by the old value. Okay, let's try number 15. In fact, why don't you pause and try number 15, and then we'll check our work. Okay, we can see the value is increasing. Okay, so this is definitely an increase. And I'll do the formula in one step this time, since it is an increase. We're doing the new divided by the old minus 1. Okay, so the new value is 333, and the old value is 328. Now, one thing I want to mention, there aren't any problems on this worksheet that require a unit conversion. Okay, so you can include the units if you want. Obviously, here the units are in dollars. You can include the units if you want, but once you make this fraction here, the units will cancel. Okay, so on all the problems on this worksheet, the units match and they will always cancel out. All right, so we're subtracting 1 from this fraction here. Okay, so I'm going to do 333 divided by 328 minus 1. All right, 333 divided by 328. Click equals, and then minus 1. Click equals. Okay, so we're rounding to 2 decimals once again. All right. So if you look at the third decimal place, if it's 5 or more, you round it up. So this part right here rounds up to 0.02. Okay, remember, if the third decimal is 5 or more, you have to round it up. So 0.02 is the answer so far. Okay, we got 0.02, and converting that to a percentage, you move the decimal 2 places to the right, and that is going to be 2%. So this was an increase. This was increased by 2%. I should really circle that answer. Okay, so that's the final answer. All right, last one. Why don't you pause and try number 17? Okay, we can see going from 284 to 206, that is clearly a decrease. So we are subtracting from 1 in this case. All right, we're going to do the new divided by the old. So that's going to be 1 minus the new value, which is 206, divided by the old value, which is 284. Okay, we have 1 minus 206 divided by 284. Hit equals, and there's your answer. Okay, and by the way, you can use parentheses if you want. If you want to do 1 minus parentheses 206 divided by 284 and close the parentheses, that's the same thing. And once again, we're rounding to 2 decimals. You look at the third decimal. If it's less than 5, you round it down. So that is 0.27. Okay, and converting that to a percentage, you move the decimal 2 places to the right, and that is just 27%. So this decreased by 27%. Okay, one last hint. For the problems that are decreasing, when you do this fraction, new divided by old, you're always going to get a value less than 1. So if you do this fraction and you get a value less than 1, you want to subtract it from 1. Okay, so you're going to do 1 minus the fraction. However, for the ones that increase, on the decimal portion, when you do this fraction, you're always going to get a value greater than 1. In that case, you're going to subtract it by 1. There should not be any negative answers on this exercise.